My husband slapped me the moment I told him I was pregnant. Can you imagine being slapped across the face by the man you love at your own pregnancy announcement party? And what if that horrific moment was just the beginning of a nightmare that would shatter everything you thought you knew about your life, your marriage, and even your own family? Story. For 2 long, heartbreaking years, Evan and I had been trying for a baby. 2 years of negative tests, 2 years of whispered worries, of wondering if my body was failing me. Then last month, my period missed. I remember taking 5 pregnancy tests in one sitting just because I couldn't believe the first 4. When those 2 pink lines finally appeared, I collapsed onto the bathroom floor, sobbing. My sister, Carrie, talked me through it on the phone, her voice brimming with excitement. "Don't just blurt it out," she'd insisted. "Make it special. Turn this into a memory you'll tell your kid about someday." So that's what I did. 7 weeks later, my house was buzzing with everyone I loved. My parents were there, beaming. Carrie kept shooting me knowing glances, practically vibrating with excitement. Evan's parents had flown in all the way from Arizona, and his younger brother, Jeff, had shown up early to help me set up. And Evan was working the crowd just like he always did, shaking hands, making everyone laugh, being the charming man I'd fallen for 6 years ago. Watching him from the kitchen doorway, my heart swelled. Tonight, I was going to make him the happiest man alive. I grabbed a fork and tapped it against my wine glass. The room slowly hushed. 40 faces turned to me. My mom was already tearing up, bless her heart, and she didn't even know yet. Evan made his way through the crowd, his arm wrapping around my waist. He looked at me with those warm, curious eyes, utterly clueless about the bombshell I was about to drop. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice shaking a little with emotion. "I know some of you traveled really far, and I promise it's worth it." I looked up at Evan, my smile radiant. "We're having a baby. I'm pregnant." The room exploded. My mom screamed. My dad clapped so hard, I thought he'd hurt his hands. Carrie was jumping up and down, yelling, "I knew it." Even though, yeah, she actually did know. Everyone was hugging, crying, and the energy in that room felt like pure, unadulterated love. I turned to Evan, expecting him to lift me up, spin me around, or do something utterly romantic. Instead, he was frozen. His arm had dropped from my waist. His face had gone completely, terrifyingly white. "Evan." I reached for him, confusion replacing my joy. "Baby, aren't you excited? We're finally going to be parents." And that's when it came. The slap. It hit me so hard I crashed backward into the gift table. The pain was instant, blinding, like someone had pressed a hot skillet against my skin. The music kept playing for 3 more seconds before someone finally killed it. Then there was nothing. Just silence. Just the ringing in my ear where his hand had landed. From the floor, I looked up at my husband, and I didn't recognize the man standing over me. His face was twisted into something ugly, his chest heaving, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You cheating whore," he roared. "You really thought you could pass off someone else's baby as mine?" I couldn't speak. My cheek was on fire, and my brain couldn't process what was happening. "Evan, what are you talking about?" I finally managed, my voice a broken whisper. "I've never cheated on you. I would never do that to you." He laughed, and it sounded like something was breaking inside him. "Stop lying," he screamed, veins bulging in his neck, spit flying. "You can't be pregnant with my baby, Marina. I had a vasectomy 4 years ago, before we even got married. I can't have babies." Those words hit me harder than his hand ever could. A vasectomy? 4 years ago? He'd been letting me cry over negative tests for 2 years, knowing the whole time it was impossible. My world tilted. "So, whose is it?" he continued, his voice rising. "Who have you been sleeping with behind my back? How long has this been going on?" The room remained dead silent. My mother had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My father looked like he wanted to kill someone, but couldn't make his legs move. Then, someone was kneeling beside me, warm hands on my shoulders, helping me sit up, brushing glass away from my dress. It was Jeff, Evan's brother, his face pale with shock as he stared at Evan like he was seeing a monster. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Jeff said, his voice shaking with anger. "You just hit your pregnant wife in front of everyone." He helped me to my feet and positioned himself between me and Evan like a shield. Evan was pacing back and forth like a caged animal. 2 years, he hissed, running his hands through his hair. 2 years I let you make me feel guilty for not giving you a baby. And this whole time you were spreading your legs for someone else. He turned to the room, arms wide, as if inviting everyone to see what I really was. Look at her. Look at her standing there pretending to be confused. She knows exactly what she did. She knows exactly whose baby that is. So there I was, face stinging, my entire family watching, accused of cheating by my own husband. And the worst part? Evan had proof. A vasectomy I never knew about. In his mind, this pregnancy was impossible unless I'd slept with someone else. I demanded a paternity test. It would take a week to come back. 7 days until I could prove I was innocent. But I didn't know that those 7 days would be the worst of my life. Because while I waited for science to save me, everyone I loved was about to turn on me. Everyone left the party without saying goodbye. They just grabbed their coats and filed out, one by one, eyes down, mouth shut. My parents were the last to go. My father hugged me so tight it hurt and whispered, "I'll kill him if you want me to." But I shook my head because I still believed this was just a horrible misunderstanding. When the door finally closed, I turned, and Evan was already walking toward our bedroom. "Evan," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "Please, just listen to me. I don't know how to explain this, but I haven't been with anyone else. You're the only man I've been with in 6 years. There has to be another explanation." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just this cold, empty sound that made me feel sick. "Another explanation for how you got pregnant by a man who can't make babies?" He took a step toward me. I flinched. I actually flinched away from my own husband. I watched that register on his face. For half a second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or a recognition of what he'd done. But then it was gone, replaced by that hard, angry mask. "I'd love to hear it, Marina." "Really? Enlighten me." I had nothing. No explanation. No defense, except my own word, which clearly meant nothing to him anymore. "Then let's do a paternity test," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Let's prove it scientifically. Because when that test comes back showing you're the father, you're going to have to live with how you treated me tonight. You're going to have to look me in the eyes knowing you hit me and called me those things and humiliated me in front of everyone I love." Something changed in his expression. Doubt, maybe, or fear. He was quiet for a long moment, and I let the silence stretch because I needed him to feel the weight of what he'd done. "Fine," he finally said. "First thing tomorrow." We sat in the clinic waiting room like two strangers sharing a bus stop. Evan sat 4 chairs away from me, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping under his skin. Every few minutes, he'd glance at me, then look away, like even the sight of me made him sick. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab his face and force him to look at me, really look at me, and see that I was telling the truth. But I just sat there, hands folded in my lap, staring at the wall, trying not to cry in public. The nurse called my name first, and I went alone because Evan refused to be in the same room while they drew my blood. Afterward, she told me I'd have to wait 7 to 10 business days. I sighed heavily. That meant 7 to 10 days of this hell. I nodded and thanked her, walking back to the waiting room on legs that didn't feel like mine. The texts from his family started on day 2. His mother went first. "I always knew you were a bitch. Now my whole family knows it too." His sister followed an hour later. "You disgust me. I hope you lose that baby." His aunt sent a paragraph about how she'd warned Evan not to marry me, how she'd seen the trash in me from day one, how I'd fooled everyone with my nice girl act. But now, the mask was off. His cousin sent a photo of me from the party, mid-fall, with the caption, "Cheaters always get what they deserve." I sat on my bed, reading message after message until my phone screen blurred from tears. These people had hugged me at holidays. They'd sent me birthday cards. They'd told me I was part of the family. Now they were calling me names I'd never been called in my life and wishing harm on my unborn child. I turned off my phone because I couldn't take any more. Carrie came over that afternoon and found me still in bed. She climbed in next to me like we were kids again and just held me while I cried. "You need to leave him," she said softly. "He hit you, Marina. In front of witnesses. You could press charges. You could take him for everything." My mother called that night saying the same thing. So did my father. So did everyone in my family who reached out. Leave him. Sue him. Make him pay. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because the test would prove I was innocent and then everything would go back to normal. It had to. I lay awake that night, my hand on my stomach, trying to feel something, some connection to the life growing inside me. But all I felt was doubt. What if Evan was right? What if the vasectomy made it impossible? What if, somehow, someway, something had happened that I couldn't remember? The thought made me sick, but I couldn't stop it from creeping in. I went through every night of the past 3 months in my head. Every time Evan and I had been together. Every moment I'd been alone. Nothing made sense. I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew it in my bones. But if Evan really couldn't have children, then whose baby was this? On day 4, Jeff knocked on my door, holding a bag of takeout. "Figured you weren't eating," he said. His voice was gentle, and his eyes were soft with concern. I hadn't showered in 2 days. I was wearing the same sweatpants I'd slept in, and my hair was tangled into a mess. I looked like a mess, but Jeff didn't seem to notice or care. He just stood there on my porch, waiting patiently for me to let him in. And I did. We sat at the kitchen table, and Jeff unpacked containers of lo mein and fried rice and orange chicken. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me to explain myself or defend myself or prove anything. He just handed me a fork and said, "Eat something, please." So I did. Small bites at first because I had zero appetite. But the food was warm, and the company was warmer, and slowly, I started to feel almost human again. Jeff talked about stupid things. A movie he'd seen. A coworker who microwaved fish. His neighbor's dog that barked at 3 a.m. He filled the silence with easy conversation that didn't require anything from me except to listen. And when I finally started crying, which I knew I would, he didn't panic or pull away. He just moved his chair closer, put his arm around my shoulders, and let me fall apart. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said between sobs. "I know you probably think I did, but I swear, Jeff, I have never been with anyone except your brother. I don't know how this happened. I don't understand any of this." He rubbed slow circles on my back and shook his head. "I believe you," he said quietly. "I don't know what's going on, but I know you're not that kind of person. Anyone who's spent 5 minutes with you knows that." I cried harder because after 4 days of being treated like a criminal, someone finally saw me. Someone finally believed me without demanding proof. Jeff stayed for 2 more hours. He washed the dishes even though I told him not to. He made sure I had his number saved in my phone in case I needed anything. And when he left, he hugged me at the door and told me to call him anytime, day or night, if everything got too heavy. I watched him drive away and felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Someone was actually on my side and not trying to tell me what to do or berating me left and right. I survived the week from hell. Evan's family calling me every name. Carrie begging me to leave him. Evan looking through me like I was already gone. The only person who didn't treat me like a criminal was Jeff. He checked on me every day. Brought me food when I couldn't eat. Told me Evan was wrong for what he did. But I held on because the test results were finally here. This was my proof, my vindication. Except when I opened that envelope, I didn't find salvation. I found something that made everything 1,000 times worse. 3 more days passed before the envelope arrived. Jeff checked on me a few times and brought food when he could, but mostly I was alone in a house where my husband lived 20 feet away and acted like I didn't exist. Evan had been locked in the guest room since the night of the party. He'd leave for work before I woke up. He'd come home after I'd already gone to bed. The only sign he was still living there was the coffee mug in the sink every morning and the sound of the guest room door clicking shut every night. We existed in the same house like ghosts who couldn't see each other. Sometimes I'd stand outside the guest room door with my hand raised, ready to knock, ready to try one more time. But I never did. What was the point? He'd made up his mind about me. The only thing that would change it was proof. And proof was coming. When the mail truck finally pulled up on day 7, I was standing at the window, like I'd been doing every afternoon. My heart jumped into my throat the second I saw the white envelope in the mailman's hand. Clinic logo in the corner, my name printed on the front. My entire future folded up inside a single piece of paper. I ran outside in my bare feet, not caring that the concrete was cold, not caring that I was still in my pajamas. I grabbed the envelope from his hands before he could put it in the box. He gave me a strange look, but I didn't care. I didn't care about anything except what was inside. I held it against my chest and felt my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. This was finally it. 7 days of hell were about to end. I was about to be vindicated. I called Jeff first. I don't know why. Maybe because he was the only person who'd believed me. Maybe because I needed someone in my corner when I finally proved the world wrong. He answered on the second ring. The results came, I said, and I could hear the hope in my own voice. They're here, Jeff. I'm holding them right now. He told me he'd be there in 10 minutes and to wait for him before I opened anything. I agreed because I wanted witnesses. I wanted everyone to see the moment I was proven innocent. Then I went to the guest room door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Evan, I called through the door. The results are here. Come out. I want you to see this with your own eyes. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard movement inside. Footsteps, the creak of the bed, then silence. I knocked a third time. I'm not going away. This affects both of us, and you're going to be here when I open it. More silence. Then, finally, the lock clicked. The door swung open, and Evan stood there, looking at me with empty eyes. He'd lost weight in the past week. His face was pale, and there were dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping either. For half a second, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the slap. I remembered the names he'd called me. I remembered the way he'd turned the whole room against me. The sympathy disappeared. He didn't say a word. He just walked past me toward the kitchen and sat down at the table with his arms crossed, waiting. I followed him and placed the envelope in the center of the table between us. Neither of us touched it. We just stared at it like it might explode. Jeff arrived 5 minutes later. I heard his car pull into the driveway and went to let him in. He looked nervous, which surprised me. His eyes kept darting to the envelope on the table and then back to my face. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded because I was more than okay. I was ready. I was finally going to prove that I hadn't done anything wrong. He followed me into the kitchen and froze when he saw Evan sitting there. The two brothers looked at each other for a long moment. Something passed between them that I couldn't read. Then Jeff pulled out a chair and sat down, positioning himself closer to me than to Evan. "You haven't opened it yet," Jeff said, stating the obvious. I shook my head. I wanted witnesses. I wanted both of you to watch me open it, so no one can say I tampered with anything, so no one can claim I switched the results or forged something, or whatever other accusation might come next. I looked directly at Evan when I said that last part. He didn't react, just sat there with his arms crossed and his jaw tight, staring at the envelope like he was trying to set it on fire with his eyes. Jeff reached across the table and put his hand over mine. His palm was warm against my cold fingers. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "I'm here, okay? No matter what that paper says, I'm not going anywhere." I squeezed his hand and thanked him for being the only person who'd stood by me through this nightmare. For the only person who'd believed me when everyone else had already decided I was guilty. Evan's eyes locked onto our hands, and something dark flickered across his face. His jaw tightened even more. His nostrils flared. "Seriously?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Just ice. I'm sitting right here, and you're holding hands with my brother. Should I even bother reading those results, or do I already have my answer?" I pulled my hand away from Jeff's and stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. The sound was loud in the quiet kitchen. "Don't you dare," I said, and my voice came out stronger than I expected. Don't you dare twist this into something it's not. Your brother is the only person who's been kind to me while you've been treating me like garbage. He's been bringing me food because I can't eat. He's been checking on me because you won't even look at me. So, don't you stand there and act like I'm doing something wrong by accepting basic human kindness from the only person who's offered it. Evan rolled his eyes. Just open the envelope. Marina, I don't have all day to listen to your excuses. I took a deep breath and picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should, like the weight of my entire marriage was pressed into that single piece of paper. I looked at Evan and felt something surge in my chest. Confidence. Certainty. I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew I hadn't been with anyone else. Whatever was in this envelope was going to prove it. And then he was going to have to look me in the eyes and apologize for everything he'd put me through. I held on to that image as I slid my finger under the seal. The sound of the paper tearing was impossibly loud. I pulled out the single sheet inside and unfolded it slowly, savoring the moment. This was it. This was my vindication. My eyes scanned the words at the top. Medical terminology, reference numbers, my name, Evan's name, and then the results. I read them once. My brain didn't process what I was seeing. I read them again. The words were the same, but they still didn't make sense. I read them a third time, and the paper started shaking in my hands. No. No, 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 no. This wasn't right. This couldn't be right. There had to be a mistake, a typo, a mix-up at the lab. Something. Anything. Because what I was reading was impossible. What does it say? Evan demanded. His voice cut through the fog in my brain. Read it out loud. I want to hear you say it. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat had closed up. My lungs had stopped working. The room was tilting sideways, and I had to grab the edge of the table to keep from falling over. Marina, Jeff said, and his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater, far away, muffled. What does it say? I looked up at my husband, at the man I'd loved for 6 years, at the man I'd built a life with, at the man who was waiting for me to confirm everything he already believed about me. Tears were streaming down my face, and I couldn't stop them. It says, my voice cracked, barely a whisper. You're not the father. The words hung in the air between us. Heavy, final, devastating. Evan's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker of surprise. He just sat there with his arms crossed like he'd been expecting this all along, like he'd known from the beginning that I was exactly what he accused me of being. And there it is, he said slowly. His voice was calm now, almost peaceful, like a storm that had finally passed. The proof. You've been cheating on me this whole time, and now you can't hide it anymore. He stood up slowly and put both hands on the table, leaning toward me until I could see every line of anger on his face. So, who is it, huh? Who's the lucky guy? Someone from work? Some random guy you met at a bar? An ex-boyfriend you never really got over? He was getting louder with each question. Tell me, Marina, I deserve to know whose baby you're carrying in my house. Whose baby you tried to trick me into raising as my own. I don't know. I sobbed. The words came out broken and desperate. I don't understand. I haven't been with anyone else, Evan. I swear on my life, I haven't been with anyone else. There has to be a mistake. The lab made an error. We need to take another test. We need to. He slammed his fist on the table so hard the envelope jumped, and my whole body flinched. The test isn't wrong. He was screaming now, full volume, veins bulging in his neck, just like the night of the party. Science doesn't lie, Marina. DNA doesn't lie. The only liar in this room is you. He pointed his finger in my face, and I could see his hand shaking with rage. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years. And now you're standing there crying like you're the victim. Like I'm the bad guy for being angry that my wife got pregnant by another man. I didn't do this. I screamed back at him. Something inside me broke. All the fear and confusion and desperation came pouring out as rage. I don't know how this happened, but I didn't do this. I have never been with anyone except you. Not once in 6 years. I don't understand what's happening, but I know I didn't cheat. You have to believe me, Evan. Please. I grabbed his arm, desperate for him to see me. Really see me. To look past his anger and recognize the woman he'd married, the woman who loved him, the woman who would never betray him. Please believe me. Please, I'm begging you. He shoved me away so hard I stumbled backward. My hip hit the counter, and pain shot through my side. Jeff jumped up and caught me before I could fall further, his arms wrapping around me to steady me. Don't touch me. Evan snarled, and his face was twisted into something I didn't recognize. Pure hatred. Pure disgust. Don't ever touch me again. You make me sick. Looking at you right now makes me physically sick. I can't even stand to be in the same room as you. He turned to Jeff, who was still holding on to me, and his eyes narrowed. And you, my own brother, sitting here holding her hand, comforting her, being her shoulder to cry on while my marriage falls apart? He took a step toward Jeff, and for a second, I thought he was going to swing. Did you know about this? Did you know she was sleeping around behind my back? Have you two been laughing at me this whole time? Jeff's face went pale. His arms tightened around me, almost protectively. I didn't know anything, he said quietly. His voice was steady, but I could feel his heart pounding against my back. I swear to you, Evan. I just came to support her when the results came in. That's all. I had no idea. Evan stared at his brother for a long moment, searching his face for something. Then he laughed. That horrible, cold laugh that made my blood run cold. Support her, right? Well, congratulations.
She's all yours now.
You can have her. I'm done. He turned and stormed toward the guest room. I heard drawers being yanked open, clothes being thrown, hangers clattering to the floor. Jeff let go of me, and I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, frozen, tears streaming down my face, my whole body shaking so hard I thought my bones might rattle loose. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I'd been so sure, so completely certain that the test would save me, that science would prove what I already knew, prove I was innocent and faithful. Instead, the test had destroyed everything. And it hadn't even given me answers. It just told me Evan wasn't the father. It didn't tell me who was. It didn't explain how any of this was possible. It just left me standing in my kitchen with my whole life in pieces and no idea how to put them back together. Evan came back 10 minutes later, dragging 2 suitcases behind him. He didn't look at me as he walked toward the front door. His face was set in stone. His eyes were fixed straight ahead, like I was already invisible to him. Evan, wait! I begged, running after him. I grabbed the back of his shirt, and he spun around so fast I stumbled backward. Don't touch me, he said through clenched teeth. What part of that don't you understand? I held up my hands in surrender, tears blurring my vision. Please, we can figure this out. We can take another test. Something is wrong. Something doesn't make sense. I know I didn't cheat, Evan. I know it. There has to be an explanation. He stared at me for a long moment, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or sadness, or the ghost of the man he used to be. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold, hard mask. The only thing that doesn't make sense is how I didn't see what you really were sooner.
My mother was right about you.
My whole family was right about you. I should have listened to them from the beginning. He picked up his suitcases and opened the front door. I'm staying with Felix until I figure out what to do about the house. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't try to contact me at all. As far as I'm concerned, you don't exist anymore. The door slammed behind him so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Then his car started. Then he was gone and I was alone. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor and cried so hard I thought I might shatter into 1,000 pieces. Jeff knelt down beside me and tried to put his arm around me, but I pushed him away. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want kindness. I wanted answers. Because I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew I hadn't been with anyone else. I had never let another man touch me in 6 years of marriage. So, how is this possible? How was I carrying a baby that wasn't my husband's? I stared at those results, knowing how guilty this looked. Evan was gone. He wouldn't even let me explain. He had already decided I was a cheater and a liar. But I still had no idea how this happened. I didn't know that Carrie was about to ask me a question that would change everything. A question I should have asked myself weeks ago. I called Carrie before the sun came up. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting by the phone all night. The results came back. I said, my voice raw from crying. Evan's not the father. She was at my door within the hour. I let her in and handed her the paper without saying anything. She read it twice, her face getting paler each time. Then she sat it down on the kitchen table and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Sit down, she said. We need to talk through this. I sat across from her at the table. The same table where Evan had slammed his fist. The same spot where Jeff had held my hand. The exact place where my entire life had fallen apart less than 12 hours ago. Carrie pushed the results aside and folded her hands in front of her. I need you to walk me through everything. Not the party, before that. When do you think you conceived? I stared at her. What does that matter? The test says Evan isn't the father. That's the only thing that matters. Just answer the question, Marina. When do you think it happened? I tried to focus. My brain felt like it was full of static. I don't know exactly. Evan and I were together a lot during that window. We had a whole system. Ovulation tracking, temperature charts, scheduled nights. It could have been any of those times. Carrie shook her head. You're about 11 weeks along. That means conception happened roughly 9 weeks ago, maybe 10. She leaned forward. Think harder. Is there any night during that time that stands out? Anything that felt different or strange? I closed my eyes and tried to go back. All those nights of trying so hard blurred together. The same routine, the same hope, the same disappointment month after month until the one test that finally came back positive. But then something floated up from the back of my mind. A night I hadn't thought about since it happened. A night that was different from all the others. There was one night, I said slowly, my eyes still closed, reaching for details I'd never bothered to examine before. About 9 or 10 weeks ago, I woke up because Evan was shaking me gently. Then I felt him kissing my neck. I paused, remembering. I asked if he was in the mood, and he just hummed like a yes. And I remember wanting a baby so badly, I went along with it. Carrie's voice was steady. What else do you remember? I tried to pull more from the fog. It was completely dark. We have blackout curtains because Evan's a light sleeper. I couldn't see anything, not even an outline. I paused. Something was shifting in my chest. Something uncomfortable. He never actually said anything. Not one word the whole time. Usually, Evan would whisper to me, tell me he loved me, ask if I was okay. But that night, it was just the hum. And when it was over, he just rolled away and went to sleep. Or I thought he did. I was so tired, I passed out again right after. Carrie was quiet for a long moment. I opened my eyes and found her staring at me with an expression that made me dizzy. When she spoke again, her voice was careful, gentle, like she was trying not to break something fragile. Marina, I need you to really think about what I'm about to ask you. I felt my whole body tense. Okay. She reached across the table and took my hands. Her fingers were cold. That night, the darkness, the silence, the way he didn't speak, just hummed. She squeezed my hands. Are you absolutely certain it was Evan? I yanked my hands back like she'd burned me. What kind of question is that? Of course it was Evan. I was in my own bed, in my own house. Who else would it have been? But even as the words came out, something cold started crawling up my spine. Carrie didn't look away. You said it was pitch black. You said he never spoke. Not one word. Just a hum that could have come from anyone. She paused. How do you know it was him? Because it had to be him, I said, but my voice was shaking. He was there when I woke up in the morning. Nobody else could have gotten into our house. What you're suggesting is insane, Carrie. Completely insane. Carrie's face was pale, but her voice stayed steady. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking you to consider something. A possibility that would explain why you're pregnant with a baby that isn't Evan's, even though you swear you never cheated. I stood up so fast my chair crashed backward onto the floor. I needed to move. I needed to get away from this conversation. I needed my sister to stop saying things that were making the walls close in around me. No, I said, backing away from the table. That's not possible. I would have known. I would have felt that something was wrong. I would have, but would I have? The room was completely dark. Not a single word was spoken. Just that one low hum. His hands didn't touch me the way Evan's usually did. Rougher, more urgent, less careful with me. I had told myself it was because he was half asleep. Exhaustion made people different. Sometimes intimacy didn't have to be gentle to still be love. What if it wasn't love at all? What if it wasn't Evan? Oh God, I whispered. My back hit the kitchen counter, and I grabbed it to keep myself upright.
Carrie.
Oh my God. She was out of her chair instantly, crossing the room to catch me as my legs gave out. Her arms wrapped around me and held me up while my whole body started to shake. Breathe, she said into my hair. Just breathe. We don't know anything for sure yet. This is just a possibility. We need to think about this clearly. But I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't think at all. If Carrie was right, then an intruder had come into my home while I was sleeping. A stranger had climbed into my bed in the dark. My body had been used while I thought it was my husband. And I had gone along with it eagerly, wanting a baby so badly that I never questioned the silence. Never wondered why the darkness felt different. Never stopped to make sure the man touching me was actually my husband.
Who?
I choked out. The word barely made it past my throat. Who would do something like that? Who has access to our house in the middle of the night? Carrie went very still. Her arms tightened around me. And then she said something that made my blood turn to ice. Who has a key to your house, Marina? The answer hit me like a truck. The only other person who had one was Jeff. Jeff had a key. Evan gave him one 2 years ago when we went on vacation and needed someone to water the plants. We never asked for it back. My mind started racing through everything from the past week. His kindness when everyone else turned on me. His certainty that I hadn't cheated. Showing up at my door without being called. Sitting too close on the couch. Touching my knee. Telling me maybe my marriage falling apart was for the best. Being there when I opened the results. Holding my hand while I read the words that destroyed my life. No, I said, but even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. Horrible pieces. Pieces I didn't want to see. Not Jeff. He wouldn't. He's Evan's brother. He's been helping me. I trailed off. Helpful. Attentive. Always there. Never surprised by anything that happened, like he already knew how it would end. Carrie pulled back and looked me in the eyes. We need to find out for sure. Another test, one that compares your baby's DNA to Jeff's. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely stand. And if it's him? If the test comes back positive, what do I do then, Carrie? What do I do if Evan's own brother did this to me? It wasn't Evan that night. The realization hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Someone came into my bedroom in the dark, got into my bed, and I never knew. I thought I was trying to make a baby with my husband. I was being used by Jeff. Every visit, every kind word, every time he told me Evan didn't deserve me. He knew.
He knew the whole time.
Now I had to make Evan believe me. He wouldn't answer his phone.
He thought I was still the villain.
But I knew where he was staying. And I wasn't going to let him hide from the truth anymore. Carrie didn't have an answer. Neither did I. But I knew one thing for certain. Evan needed to hear this. He needed to know what his brother might have done. I grabbed my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. 5 more times I tried. Each call going nowhere. Each ring making me more desperate. He'd blocked me, or he was ignoring me. Either way, I wasn't getting through. He's staying with Felix, I told Carrie. I know where that is. I'm going over there. She tried to stop me. Told me I should wait until I had proof. Told me showing up hysterical with accusations against his brother would only make things worse. But I couldn't wait. Every second that passed was another second Evan believed I had betrayed him. Another second Jeff got away with what he did. I grabbed my keys and ran to my car before Carrie could say anything else. The drive to Felix's apartment took 12 minutes. I spent every one of them rehearsing what I would say, how I would make Evan listen. How I would convince him that his own brother had done something unthinkable. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn off the ignition. Felix's apartment was on the 3rd floor. I took the stairs 2 at a time and pounded on the door so hard my knuckles ached. No answer. I pounded again. "Evan!" I yelled through the wood. "I know you're in there. Open the door, please." I figured it out. I know what happened. Silence, then footsteps. Then the door swung open, and Evan stood there looking at me like I was a ghost he'd been trying to outrun. His eyes were red. His clothes were wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Go away, Marina." His voice was flat.
Dead.
"I don't want to hear any more lies." I pushed past him into the apartment before he could stop me. Felix was sitting on the couch, looking uncomfortable. I ignored him completely. "It wasn't me," I said, turning to face Evan. "I didn't cheat on you. I never cheated on you, but someone did get me pregnant. Someone who had access to our house. Someone who came into our bedroom in the middle of the night while it was pitch black and I couldn't see anything." Evan's jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" I told him everything. The night I woke up to someone shaking me. The kiss on my neck. The hum instead of words. The complete darkness. The way nothing felt quite right. But I was so desperate for a baby that I didn't question it. The way whoever it was never spoke. Not once. Just that single hum when I asked if he was in the mood. Evan's face changed as I talked. The anger was still there, but it was moving away from me and towards something else. Someone else. Who has a key to our house? I asked him. Besides us. Who else can get in? I watched the realization hit him. Watched his eyes widen. Watched his hands curl into fists at his sides. "Jeff," he whispered. The name came out like poison. "I gave Jeff a key 2 years ago." I nodded. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. "He's been so helpful this whole week, Evan. Showing up without being asked, bringing me food, telling me you didn't deserve me, holding my hand when I opened those results." My voice cracked. He knew. He knew the whole time, because he's the one who did it. Evan didn't say anything for a long moment. His chest was heaving. His face had gone from pale to red. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely controlled. "Get in the car." We drove to Jeff's apartment in complete silence. Evan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping under his skin. I didn't know what he was going to do when we got there. Part of me was scared to find out. Jeff's building was a nice complex on the east side of town. We pulled into the parking lot, and Evan was out of the car before I even had my seatbelt off. I ran after him as he stormed toward the entrance. He didn't buzz. He didn't call. He just waited until someone came out and caught the door before it closed. We took the elevator to the 4th floor. Evan pounded on the door with his fist. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the lock clicked. The door swung open, and there was Jeff. He wasn't surprised to see us. That was the first thing I noticed. No shock on his face, no confusion, no panic. He just stood there in the doorway, looking calm, almost peaceful, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Hey," he said. His voice was steady, casual, like we'd just stopped by for a visit. Evan grabbed him by the shirt and shoved him backward into the apartment. "Tell me the truth," he growled. "Tell me what you did to my wife." Jeff didn't fight back, didn't try to defend himself. He just let Evan push him until his back hit the wall. Then he looked past his brother, directly at me. His eyes found mine, and something in them made my skin crawl. Intensity. Hunger. Possession. Like he was looking at something that belonged to him. "Marina," he said softly. My name in his mouth made me want to vomit. "I've been waiting so long to finally tell you everything." Jeff stood in that doorway, looking at us like he'd been expecting this moment his whole life. No panic, no guilt, just this calm expression that made my skin crawl. Evan demanded answers. I held my breath, waiting for denials, excuses, anything that would let me pretend this was some horrible mistake. But he didn't deny it. He smiled, and what came out of his mouth next proved that this wasn't a moment of weakness or a drunken accident. This was planned. This was obsession. This was everything. The corners of Jeff's mouth curled upward in a way that made him look like a completely different person. Not the kind brother who brought me takeout. Not the gentle voice that told me everything would be okay. This smile was slow and deliberate and wrong. The kind of smile someone wears when they've been keeping a secret for years and finally get to say it out loud. "You might want to let go of me, Evan," Jeff said. His voice was steady and conversational, as if Evan wasn't pinning him against the wall with murder in his eyes. "This is going to be a long conversation, and you'll want to sit down for it." Evan's hands twisted tighter into Jeff's shirt. The fabric bunched and strained under his grip. A vein was pulsing visibly in his neck, and his breathing had gone ragged and heavy. "Start talking right now. Tell me what you did." Jeff didn't struggle, didn't try to push Evan off. He just stood there against the wall, looking more relaxed than anyone in his position should be. Then his eyes slid past Evan and landed on me. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Something about his gaze pinned me in place. He stared at me the way a lion stares down a gazelle. It became clear I was his prey from the moment we met, and he was determined to make me his. "Fine," Jeff said softly. His eyes never left mine, even though he was answering Evan. "You want to know what I did? I'll tell you everything. But first, you should know that I'm not sorry. Not even a little bit. What I did was the best decision I ever made." My chest felt like someone was sitting on it. Every breath took effort. I pressed my back harder against the wall because my legs weren't trustworthy anymore. They felt hollow, disconnected from the rest of me. Evan slammed Jeff against the wall hard enough to make a picture frame rattle. "Talk." Jeff let out a small laugh. "Having your spare key gave me so much power. Power I've been wanting for a long time. I loved that I had access to your house. Your life." He tilted his head slightly. "Your wife." The word wife came out of his mouth like he was tasting something sweet. I felt my dinner rising in my throat. Evan's whole body had gone rigid. The muscles in his arms were straining against his shirt. His jaw was clenched so tight I could hear his teeth grinding. "That night," Jeff continued, "I knew exactly what I was doing. I'd been tracking Marina's ovulation schedule for months. At every family gathering, she talked about how badly she wanted a baby. She cried about you two trying for so long that she was starting to lose hope. And I couldn't have my sweet, precious Marina feel that devastated." Every word hit me like a physical blow. He'd been watching me, studying me, learning when I was most vulnerable. "But then something interesting happened," Jeff continued. His voice had turned almost cheerful now. "You got a vasectomy and you didn't tell her. You let her believe something was wrong with her body while you sat there knowing the whole time you'd made sure she could never have your baby." He laughed softly. "That's when I realized the universe was giving me a sign. You didn't want to be a father, but I did. And Marina deserved to have the baby she'd been crying herself to sleep over for 2 years." Jeff continued, "I waited for the perfect night. I knew your bedroom layout, knew about the blackout curtains, knew Evan slept like the dead after his night poker games. All I had to do was slip in around 3 in the morning, climb into bed, wake you up the way a husband would." He looked at me again, and his expression softened into something that made me want to scream. Tenderness. Affection. Like he was remembering a romantic moment we'd shared. "You were so sweet that night, Marina. So eager. When I kissed your neck, you made this little sound, this happy little sigh. And when you asked if I was in the mood, I almost broke character and told you the truth right there. How much I loved you and wanted you." He smiled happily at that while tears poured down my face. I couldn't do anything except stand there and listen to him describe the worst thing that had ever happened to me. "But I stayed quiet," Jeff continued. "Just hummed a yes and let you believe what you wanted to believe. And afterwards, when you curled up against me in the dark, I laid there for almost an hour, just holding you, listening to you breathe, feeling your heartbeat against my chest. It was the happiest I'd ever been." Evan released one hand from Jeff's shirt and pulled it back into a fist. His knuckles were white. His arm was shaking with the effort of not swinging. "You sick piece of garbage," Evan spat. Each word came out through gritted teeth. "You violated my wife. In my house. In my bed." Jeff's eyes finally moved to his brother. Something flickered in them. Not guilt.
Not shame.
Annoyance. Like Evan was interrupting something important. She was never really yours, Evan. That's what you don't understand. From the moment I met her at your engagement party, I knew she was supposed to be with me. But you got there first. You always got there first. The better grades, the better job, the better everything. And then you got her, too. His voice dropped lower, harder. I spent 4 years watching you take her for granted. 4 years watching you ignore her while she tried so hard to be a good wife. 4 years knowing I could love her better than you ever would. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. 4 years. He'd been watching me for 4 years. Every family dinner, every holiday, every time he came over to help with something around the house, he'd been looking at me like this, wanting me like this, and I never knew. Evan's fist connected with Jeff's jaw so hard the sound echoed off the walls. Jeff's head snapped to the side, and blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, but he didn't fall, didn't cry out, didn't even raise his hands to defend himself. He just turned his head back slowly and looked at his brother with that same calm expression. Then he laughed. Blood on his teeth, and joy in his eyes. That felt good, didn't it? Jeff said. Hit me again if you want. Break my nose. Knock out my teeth. None of it changes anything. I did what I did, and I don't regret a single second of it. He spit blood onto the floor. That baby Marina is carrying, that's my baby. My child. The only family I've ever made for myself. And you can hate me all you want, but you can't undo that. You can't take that away from me. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. My legs had finally given up completely. Carrie wrapped her arms around me while I tried to make myself as small as possible. Tried to disappear. Tried to stop hearing his voice, but it kept going. And these past 2 weeks, Jeff stepped away from the wall now that Evan had let go of him. He wiped the blood from his chin with the back of his hand. Those were the best days of my life. Sitting with you in your kitchen, Marina, holding your hand, telling you I believed you when everyone else called you a liar, watching you look at me like I was the only person in the world who cared. He took a step toward me, and Evan immediately moved between us. I got to be there for you. I got to comfort you. I got to be the man you needed while your husband treated you like garbage. Every tear you cried on my shoulder was proof that I was right. You should have been with me from the beginning. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. Every moment from the past 2 weeks was replaying in my head. But it all looked different now. His arm around me on the couch. His hand on my knee. The way he always sat too close. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I thought he was being kind, supportive, brotherly. He was savoring his victory, enjoying watching me suffer while knowing he was the reason for all of it. Marina. Jeff said my name softly, almost lovingly. Look at me, please. I didn't want to, but something in his voice made me lift my head. He was standing a few feet away, with Evan blocking his path, but his eyes found mine easily, and what I saw in them terrified me more than anything else had. Hope. Genuine hope. Come with me, he said. Right now, tonight. We can leave this whole mess behind. Start over somewhere new. Raise our baby together the way it should have been from the start. The air left my lungs. He actually believed this was possible. He actually thought I might say yes. He'd violated me in the most intimate way possible, and he was standing there asking me to run away with him. You're insane, I whispered. The words came out thin and broken. You're completely insane. Something changed in his expression. The hope dimmed slightly, replaced by confusion, then frustration. I'm offering you everything, Marina. A man who actually loves you. A father for your baby. A fresh start away from everyone who turned on you. Why would you choose to stay here with someone who hit you in front of 40 people? Evan moved so fast I barely saw it. His fist connected with Jeff's face again, and this time Jeff went down. He hit the floor hard, and Evan was on top of him instantly, punching over and over. Each blow landing with a sickening thud. You don't get to talk to her. Evan was screaming. Tears were streaming down his face. You don't get to look at her. You don't get to say her name. Do you understand me? Do you understand what you did? Jeff didn't fight back. He just lay there taking the beating with that horrible smile still on his bloody face. And between punches, I heard him laughing. Quiet and wet and wrong. I sat on the floor of my brother-in-law's apartment, watching my husband beat him bloody. And all I could think was that even if Evan killed him right now, it wouldn't undo anything. It wouldn't erase what Jeff had done to me. It wouldn't take back that night. It wouldn't unpreg me, or unmake the baby growing inside me, or give me back the life I had before. I was vindicated. Evan finally knew the truth. I wasn't a cheater. I wasn't a liar. I was a victim. But being a victim didn't feel like winning. It felt like being hollowed out from the inside. Evan finally stopped hitting him. His knuckles were split open and covered in Jeff's blood. His chest was heaving. His whole body was shaking with rage that had nowhere else to go. Jeff was still conscious, still smiling through swollen lips and bloody teeth, still looking past Evan directly at me. It was worth it, Jeff slurred. His voice was thick with blood. Every second, every punch, all of it, because for one perfect night, you were mine, Marina. And nothing either of you do will ever change that. I let out the most blood-curdling scream. We called the police that night. They took Jeff away in handcuffs, while he smiled at me through the back window of the car. I told them everything, every detail of that night, every word Jeff had said. The cop nodded and wrote things down and told me I was brave for speaking up, but brave didn't fix anything. What Jeff did to me was hard to prove in court. He never broke in because he had a key. I never said no because I thought he was my husband. The lawyer called it a he said, she said situation. Even though Jeff had told us everything himself, Evan and Carrie heard it all. It didn't matter. In the end, Jeff took a deal. Some small charge about being in our house without permission. 6 months of checking in with an officer and paying a fine. No jail. Nothing that would follow him forever the way that night would follow me. Evan and I tried to fix things. For about 3 weeks, we went to a counselor, sat in a room, and talked about trust and pain and getting better. But every time I looked at him, I saw the party, the slap, the way he called me a whore in front of everyone I loved. The way he decided I was a cheater before thinking about any other answer. He said sorry 1,000 times, cried and begged, and swore he would spend his whole life making it up to me. But some things can't be fixed. Some words can't be taken back. He hit me. He shamed me in front of 40 people. He let his family send me texts wishing bad things on my baby. Even though he knows the truth now, those 2 weeks of hell still happened. I filed for divorce. He didn't fight it. I think part of him knew we were broken the moment his hand hit my face. The stress took everything from me. 2 weeks after the divorce was done, I woke up in the middle of the night with pain so bad I couldn't stand. Carrie drove me to the hospital. The doctor told me what I already knew from all the blood. I lost the baby. Part of me felt relief, and I hated myself for it. That baby was innocent. That baby didn't ask to be made. But every time I thought about carrying Jeff's child, every time I pictured looking into a face that might have his eyes or his smile, I couldn't breathe. Now the baby was gone, and I didn't have to choose. The guilt from feeling relieved will probably stay with me forever. But for now, there's nothing I can do but start a new life, far from everyone.